நேயர்களுக்கு வணக்கம். இது அமெரிக்க தமிழ் ஊடகம் தமிழ் எங்கள் மூச்சு. 47வது ஜனாதிபதியை தேர்ந்தெடுக்கும் முகமாக அமெரிக்கர்கள் நவம்பர் மாதம் 5ஆம் தேதி வாக்குச்சாவடிகளை நாட இருக்கின்றார்கள். தங்களுடைய ஜனநாயக கடமையை நிறைவேற்றும் முகமாக. அந்த வகையில் அமெரிக்க தமிழ் ஊடகம் விடுகதை ஆன இந்த விடை தேடும் பயணத்தில் இது பற்றிய விவரங்களை, இது பற்றிய தகவல்களை உங்களுடன் பகிர்ந்து கொண்டு வந்திருக்கின்றது இந்த நிகழ்ச்சியில். அந்த வகையில் எங்கள் எதிர்கால சந்ததியினர், எங்கள் நாளைய சமூகத்தினர் இந்த அதிபர் தேர்தல் அல்லது ஜனாதிபதி தேர்தல் பற்றி என்ன நினைக்கின்றார்கள்? அவர்களுக்கு இருக்கும் முக்கிய பிரச்சனைகள் என்ன? தாங்கள் ஒரு வாக்காளராய் எதை மனதில் உள்வாங்கிக் கொண்டு தங்கள் வாக்குகளை இந்த வாக்குச்சாவடியில் செலுத்தப் போகின்றார்கள் என்பது பற்றிய ஒரு கருத்து பகிர்வாக இந்த நிகழ்ச்சி இடம்பெறப் போகின்றது. இந்த நிகழ்ச்சியில் பங்கு பெறும் அன்பர்களின் அல்லது நண்பர்களின் சொந்த கருத்துக்களாக இவைகள் இருக்குமே ஒழிய அமெரிக்க தமிழ் ஊடகத்தின் கருத்துக்களாக இது இருக்க மாட்டாது என்ற எங்கள் பொறுப்பு துறப்பை உங்கள் மத்தியில் விதைத்துவிட்டு அழைத்து வருகின்றோம் எங்கள் நாளைய தலைமுறையினை சார்ந்த இருவரை, ரோஷான் ஸ்ரீனிவாசன் மற்றும் ஷவன். ரோஷான் வணக்கம், ஷவன் குட் ஈவினிங் டு யூ.
Hello, அனைவருக்கும் வணக்கம். Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, before we go, I just wanted to inform Shravan is more comfortable in English. So, in my opinion, I always say language should not be a barrier when it comes to expressing their opinion. So, Shravan is going to be in English, whereas Roshan is going to mix both languages as he feels comfortable, and we'll get going with it. Roshan, over to you.
Okay,
Question
sounds
number
good.
one for you. In terms, this is going to be a second election that you're going to vote for the presidential candidate. What do you feel?
அனைவருக்கும் வணக்கம். என் பேர் ரோஷன். நான் இப்போ ரிச்மண்ட் வர்ஜீனியாவில் இருக்கேன். எனக்கு இப்போ 21 வயசு. And uncle கேட்ட மாதிரி, this is my second election that I'm eligible to vote for. So what do I currently think? And I actually have a couple notes written down. If I wanted to just come right out and say it, I'm going to vote for blue. I'm going to vote Kamala Harris. நிறைய பேருக்கு டிஃப்ரெண்ட் ஐடியா இருக்கலாம். அதாவது சில பேர் they want to conserve their income, they want to pay less taxes, they don't mind what the government is doing as far as like helping the public, whatever. It's just they want to live their life, take care of their family, take care of themselves and everything like that. And then இன்னொரு பக்கத்துல நிறைய பேர் பப்ளிக் ஏதாவது செய்யணும், இல்ல நான் வந்து I'm in a state of privilege, I have the means to pay taxes or pay whatever, I can do things that I believe are helpful to society. And that's just a difference of opinion. I think this election, however, doesn't really come down to a difference of opinion. It's just a matter of, are you making the right choice or are you making the wrong choice? We can both sit here, everyone can tell me why they don't like Kamala Harris, why they do like Kamala Harris. I personally like the way that she handles certain things like women's reproductive rights. I believe that every woman should have the decision to choose what to do with her own body. She also cares about healthcare for American citizens. She's supportive of universal healthcare and getting health insurance for every American citizen. But more importantly, I am just strongly against voting for Trump. And I just want to take a few seconds to talk about why I'm against voting for Trump. Firstly, he is a convicted criminal. If he is elected for president, he's not going to be eligible to face any of the punishments for the crimes that he's committed so far, because the Supreme Court is in his control, right? So currently, I believe it leans 6-3 as far as Supreme Court justices. I believe there's 6 Republican leaning Supreme Court justices and 3 Democrat leaning Supreme Court justices. If Trump were to come back to the White House, come back to the Oval Office, he would have enough power to, pull strings with the Supreme Court justices and essentially just say, give me a slap on the wrist and move on for the next 4 years. Which obviously should not happen. Multiple juries have convicted him of 34 felonies. He should face the time for the crimes he's committed. He's also had accusations of sexual assault and harassment. And another big thing is, அவனோட பேசிஸே நான் வந்து ஒரு businessman. I'm not a politician. I run businesses. I run them well. But that itself is objectively false. In New York, he's faced, I think, $340 million worth of fines. He has countless penalties, and he's literally banned from getting a loan. There's no bank in New York that is authorized to give Donald Trump a loan because he has been convicted of so much fraud and debauchery and everything in the state of New York. He's also been impeached twice. He handled COVID-19 extremely poorly. That I think that is probably my biggest um, point as to why I don't like Trump. You know, if he had just taken a second to say to the American citizen, you should take the vaccine. It's been tested by scientists. It's been proven to be effective. Hundreds of thousands of people would still be alive and still be with us. The world would have been much safer. We would have moved on from COVID-19 faster. The economy would have taken a less of a hit. And we can go on and on and on, right? The entire COVID-19 crisis could have been handled much better if Trump had just taken the second to acknowledge the hard work of the diligent scientists of America and of the entire world and said, hey, the vaccine is safe. We should take it. And if he just enforced, social distancing rules and everything like that, would have been great. Another thing is he hasn't held himself or citizens that rushed the White House accountable for the January 6th incident. You know, when people rushed into the White House, they injured a lot of officers in riots and protests. That he really hasn't, acknowledged anything that happened. He won't say that he lost the election, and that's the other thing. He won't even acknowledge that he lost the election, right? And in a democracy, do you want a leader who isn't able to take a loss? If he's going to look at you in the face and say, I don't respect your vote, I do not acknowledge the votes of the American citizens enough to the point where I can say I have lost, then he is not a true supporter of democracy. Overall, he's just dishonest. He's untrustworthy. I don't think there's anything charming or anything positive about Trump, which is personally why I'm just going to be taking the latter option.
Thank you, Roshan. Thank you for giving your personal feedback and what you believe and what you think is going to be in your opinion is going to take US or America towards the next 4 years. Appreciate it very much. Shravan,
Yeah.
you've got 4 more years to cast your vote. But as an observer, as a believer, if you need to talk to your parents or if you need to convince somebody in your area, what do you believe in and what we should do?
Well, I feel like this election has been like the most like contested one, like because in a way, given the current state of American politics, it's just like both sides are just so like far away from each other that even if the Republicans won, the Democrats may not accept that. So it's kind of like both parties are not willing to like see either side in this election win. Like it's like the political system since we had only two parties who can really run for the elections. It's just like you either have the left or right, or you just don't vote at all. So it's like you really have no choice between these two candidates. Both of them has their own flaws. Keep in mind, but like I feel like this election is kind of like the lesser of two evils. Who do you think is less worse than the other, in your personal beliefs?
Interesting thought process, Ravan. So thank you for bringing it up. So, what does it make you to think that this election that the youngsters will go and cast their vote? Because in the last election, when that change happened, I know it was obvious that youngsters' vote was the turning point. And this election, the Pew Research Institute also keeps on saying that the candidates have abandoned the youngsters. The belief that they had were not achieved in the last 4 plus years. That being said, as a youngster, do you think the hope, the expectations, the belief that the younger community, the younger voters had 4 years ago has been achieved by this current government?
I feel like yes, because nowadays, like I think the government is aware on how much like the youth in America plays. Like it can affect public opinion. For example, like some youngsters might be protesting if the government makes like a bad move or a questionable move. Like there's definitely could be like students, like college students or high school students who'd be protesting in the streets, even if they're not 18 or know much about politics. They'll still try and make their voices heard.
Thank you. So, Roshan, question for you. Gun control, economy, abortion rights, healthcare, given those four factors along with the geopolitics, what do you think whoever who comes in as the next president of this, the oldest democracy, would or should focus on?
Absolutely. That's a great question, Uncle. Um, Gun control, healthcare. What were the two other things?
Gun control, healthcare, economy, geopolitics, or the ongoing wars,
Okay.
and what would they focus on?
Yeah, I think right now, gun control and probably geopolitics and the economy are the three biggest concerns. Right now, the leading cause of death in American children is gun violence. School shootings. Is literally that's just a fact. It's not car accidents. It's not disease, anything like that. It is gun violence. So to ensure the safety of the American future, I think the next president, whoever it is, needs to take strong concern and action towards making America a safer place. And that doesn't necessarily mean banning all guns. A lot of when I advocate for gun control, a lot of counter argument is, we have cars, and cars kill a lot of people. Car accidents kill millions of people. But that argument is really flawed, because in order to get in a car, right, you have to take a test. You have to prove that you are capable of driving the car. You have to take a physical test of driving the car itself and a knowledge test. You have to follow. There are multiple rules in place, everything like that. But when it comes to a gun, it's a lot less regulated, and it's a lot more easy for those who are mentally unwell, those who are actively seeking to cause harm, um, those types of characters to get their hands on guns. Um, so we just need a system that has a similar regulation to getting a driver's license, right? You just go, you prove that you are mentally stable and well. Um, you give your proof of address. You register a gun to your name. Maybe even get I saw something really cool where it's like each bullet comes biomarked with a certain owner's identity. So, if you shoot a bullet, just like a fingerprint, when that bullet's casing is left on the scene, they can identify it to who shot it or who the gun is at least registered to. There's a lot of creative solutions that we can come to regarding gun control that doesn't necessarily um, have to do with banning all guns. So that's my thought on gun control. And as far as economics, I definitely think, regardless of whether the Republican Party nominee wins or the Democratic Party nominee wins, economics is a huge deal. I personally am just really sick of paying a lot more for when I go on a McDonald's run, or when I go to get a full tank of gas. I remember when it was like $1.89 for a gallon, and now it's $2.90, $2.95 on a good day, right? And that's just me on the East Coast. I can't even imagine what it's like for people in California, in those heavily blue states. So I think the national economy definitely needs to, there definitely needs to be changes made. I am personally not as um, smart. I don't have any creative ideas as far as what economics concerns are, but I definitely would like to see something change so that my life as a citizen is affected positively. And then geopolitics, I think, one, the Russia-Ukraine war needs to be addressed. We need to be doing more things actively to stop innocent lives from being taken. And two, I also think that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict needs to be addressed as well. I think that America needs to stop sending billions and billions of dollars to Israel and start, at the very least, take that money and invest it in our own country. Our citizens in Florida, they are struggling to leave, struggling to pay for the damages to their homes because of Hurricane Milton. And then there was a hurricane before that. I'm blanking on the name, but I think there's one coming after this too, after Hurricane Milton too. So I think rather than just shelling out billions of dollars to a foreign country, we need to reinvest that money into our own citizens, into our own infrastructure. And by coming to an agreement on how we're going to do these things, that's how we strive for a better future.
Just a follow-up question on those two things. Democrats had the power. Why didn't they choose, or why didn't they decide on the war? They keep on supporting the war. Whereas what the Republican Party or the Trump followers keeps on saying, Trump is the one who ended up the war in Afghanistan and brought the troops back, and money was not spent. What's your take on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it could go either way. Are you referring to the removal of the troops in Afghanistan, or are you talking about the Russia-Ukraine war? Which war specifically?
So, my question is, Democrats are in power.
Mhm.
They could have stopped the war.
They could
And
have.
now, if let's say if Kamala Harris wins the election, how is it going to be different from now to the next 4 years?
Absolutely. For one, I think that the voices of the youth have definitely got to Kamala Harris. In a lot of the rallies that she's hosting, a lot of the interviews that she's giving, she is actively advocating for a ceasefire in Palestine and Israel, that general region, which I think is the first step of many to stop what's happening there. But it is something that I am hopeful for. When as of Biden's current presidency, he hasn't done. He said like, "Hey, we should have a ceasefire," but I think that was for like 2 weeks, and during that time, Israel didn't actually stop. There wasn't actually a ceasefire. They continued to drop bombs and shoot and everything like that, and they weren't punished because they know that America supports Israel so strongly that even though the world might say one thing, why would I need to listen to it when I have the strongest country in the world supporting me, right? That's Israel's logic. So I think one, we need to treat them fairly as we would every other country. Stop giving them this unconditional support and love. And two, if the carrot isn't working, we have to bring out the stick, right? I think that's definitely something that Kamala Harris has been advocating for while campaigning. And I hope that once she gets into office, that is something she will enact upon.
All right, thank you, Roshan. Shravan,
Yeah.
just fast forward your life 10 years from now. Are you afraid how this economy is going to impact on your life, in your job, in your career, and overall how you're going to be living in this part of the land?
Well, I haven't really thought of that yet. So
All right, but my question is more towards, do you see the economy going on the right path, or are you feeling a bit nervousness saying, all right, once I get graduated from college, am I going to get a job? Is my job is going to be stable? Am I going to be able to make a comfortable living at that time?
And I think that economy is going on the right path for now. But again, economics can be unpredictable at times. So we'll have to see what happens a few years from now. And I feel like on the topic of like foreign policy, I mean, like, I think that's like, remember that the president does not have total power. So while it might seem that the president might fully endorse the wars going around the world, in the end, like, foreign policy does rest within the halls of Congress. And given the current state of Congress, any like form of cooperation to find a permanent solution is like kind of the reason why the U.S. is kind of sitting there watching like Israel just continue to like, ignore the calls for peace. You know?
Great feedback, Roshan. ஒரு இளைய சமுதாயமா, as a young adult, as a young community leader, what's the message that you have for the community in terms of voting, showing up for the elections, especially for those who are in colleges? Because unfortunately, if you take the countries where I come from or where your parents come from, election day is a holiday back home, meaning that you're supposed to go vote. Whereas here, it's the other way around. It's another day that we all have to have, day-to-day activities that has to be done. That's number one. Number two, if you're a college student or if you're in an area where you don't have sufficient transportation and you're not able to make it to that polling booth, then you're missing out of the democratic opportunity that you're born with, or the right that you're born with. So ஒரு இளையவராய் நீங்கள் என்ன யோசிக்கிறீங்க ரோஷன்?
Absolutely. நீங்க சொன்ன மாதிரி இளையவராய், that's a great way to put it, Uncle. It is a birthright as a citizen. And the only person who can take that right away from you is yourself, right? So by failing to show up on election day, you are ultimately stopping the world from knowing what you think, right? And I personally think that if you are a citizen and if you are bodily able and available and have transportation and can get to voting, you should absolutely be voting in this election. If you are someone who cares about democracy, if you are someone who cares about the health and safety of the women around you, if you're someone who cares about immigrants, a lot of people that are watching this are Tamil people, which obviously means that we are immigrants. If you care about your own safety, your own well-being, your economic prosperity in this country, and if you're just a human being with a heart and an intelligent mind, you should be voting. You should be out there expressing your opinions in the best way possible. And along with my personal touch, I think you should be voting blue. Don't get it in your head that, oh, my certain region is already blue, I don't really need to go vote. Oh, my state is in a swing state, well, we're always blue or we're always red, I don't need to go express my opinion, because every single vote counts, right? And for the future, it's not just a presidential election that's important, but also state and local elections, right? A federal law isn't the only law that affects your life. It's also state, it's also local. So, you're thinking, I feel like I don't like the way that the school board is being handled for my kid. Go and vote for your local school board. You're thinking, the county, state, whatever, isn't fixing the roads or whatnot. Go and vote for your county or state election, right? When you're voting locally, there's less people than a federal election, which means your vote counts more. So if you have the ability to, you're a citizen, born or naturalized, just go out there and vote. Do your research, take some time to learn the policies of the local, state, and national politicians, decide what you think is best, weigh the pros and cons of each side, and just vote.
Perfect. Nicely put, Roshan. Thank you. Shravan, what's your take on that?
I actually agree with what he had to say. I feel like
Oh no.
Protected.
There we go.
A country where voting is your legal, it's like your God-given right in a sense, because it's protected by the Constitution as a democratic country. So I feel like if you have the chance, you should use your ability to vote, because you are essentially, by voting, you're like putting the fate of who's in charge of you in your hands, essentially. It's like majority opinion. So like, it's the will of who do you think should represent you in this country, in the higher ups and in the legislative, in your state or like your city. Like, I feel like voting for any opportunity should be taken. It should be, because like not all countries, you don't have the privilege of voting in all countries, and it's illegal to speak out against your government in some countries too. So I feel like in a country where we had this tradition of having democratic values, I feel like voters should have a unchallenged opportunity to like voice their opinion.
Nicely said, Shravan. So Roshan and Shravan, one other feedback or question is, Shravan mentioned that not everybody has the right in other countries to vote. If you take the US, it's only closer to 100 plus years that the women were allowed to vote. That being said, is the country ready for a woman leadership?
I personally think that the country is absolutely ready for a woman to lead. I thought so when Hillary Clinton ran against Donald Trump. I've always been a strong advocate for women's rights and for civil rights. And I don't think that factors like race, religion, gender, sexuality, or anything should come into consideration when we're considering a leader. I think what should matter is who they are as a person, what is their character, what are their policies, things of substance, right? And I think anything along the lines of physical attributes, gender, sexuality, everything that I said, we should go into it with an unbiased mindset as possible. And that's how we make sure that those who are capable of leading have a voice and have a role in our society.
How about you, Sean? What do you think?
I think that America is ready to have a woman president because like other countries already had their first woman president. So like we've been the oldest constitutional republic, and yet we still never had a woman president. Like we only had our first not like person of color who was our president just like a few years ago, like before Trump was elected. So like that itself shows that we should be making more milestones, especially when we pose ourselves as the role model of democracy or like the guardian of democracy. I feel like as that role, we should show other nations that, hey, just be more inclusive, actually focus on the policies rather than just their appearances or beliefs or like personal beliefs.
Absolutely.
Very well said, Shravan. Any final thoughts as we wrap up today's session?
Get out there and vote, take some time, do some research on your own time. Don't necessarily just base your entire information off the news or anything you're seeing on TV. Open up your laptop, pick up your phone, type into Google, what are Trump's economic policies? What are Kamala Harris's healthcare policies? Take some time, weigh out the pros and cons, decide which one you support more, and register to vote, and then go vote. It's a very simple process. It only takes, at least in the state of Virginia, it only took my driver's license and my social security number. I registered to vote within like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. They approved me, and now all I have to do is show up to a local school with my driver's license and just, scratch a tick on a page, and then I'm done. It's a very simple, short process, but it goes a really long way.
Shravan?
I feel like you should not always base your opinion on what you see online or in person. I feel like, again, in a democratic country, you should be voting for your own beliefs, not other people's beliefs. Like, it's good to find a common agreement on something, but in the end, if what you believe in is what matters in an election.
Thank you, Shravan. Thank you, Roshan. And one final thought is not only you vote, make sure others are voting, and if they need help, give them a helping hand, whether it could be transportation or any other guidance. But everyone who has the right should be voting. That's the bottom line, because we always take it personal, saying, am I going to make a difference by voting? Is my vote going to count? Every single vote counts, at least in this part of the world. So, as you guys pointed out, it's a right that we all, whether we adapted or whether we are born with, we should do the national duty as we are a civilized society in this part of the world. Roshan, Shravan, thank you both for your time. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, sir. It was great talking to you guys.
It was great talking to you.
All right, thank you both. நேயர்களே, இதுவரை விடுகதை விடை தேடும் பயணத்தில் 47வது ஜனாதிபதியை தேர்ந்தெடுக்கும் முகமாக அமெரிக்க மக்கள் நவம்பர் மாதம் 5ஆம் திகதி தங்கள் ஜனநாயக கடமையை நிலைநாட்ட இருக்கின்றார்கள். எம்முடன் எங்கள் நாளைய சமூகத்தினர் ரோஷான், ஸ்ரீனிவாசன் மற்றும் ஷவன் தங்கள் அபிப்பிராயங்கள், இந்த நாடு எதிர்கொள்ளும் முக்கிய பிரச்சனைகள், அது சுகாதாரத்துறையாக இருக்கட்டும், மருத்துவத்துறையாக இருக்கட்டும், அல்லது கன் கண்ட்ரோல், கன் வயலன்ஸ், துப்பாக்கி முனையில் எத்தனையோ உயிர்களை நாங்கள் பலியாகி கொண்டிருக்கின்றோம், அது பற்றிய விவரங்கள் மற்றும் ஒரு ஜனநாயக கடமையானது எங்களுடன் நாங்கள் இங்கு குடியேறி இருப்பினும் அல்லது இங்கு பிறந்திருப்பினும் எங்கள் ஜனநாயக கடமையை ஆற்ற வேண்டிய தார்மீக பொறுப்பு எங்கள் அனைவரையும் சாருகின்றது என்றும் கூறியிருந்தார்கள். இருவருக்கும் இந்த நேரத்தில் அமெரிக்க தமிழ் ஊடகத்தின் சார்பில் எங்கள் நன்றி கலந்த வணக்கங்கள். அவர்கள் கூறியதன் சாராம்சம் இதுதான். நவம்பர் மாதம் 5ஆம் தேதி இடம்பெறும் இந்த 47வது அதிபர் தேர்தலில் உங்களுடைய வாக்குகளை செலுத்த வேண்டிய தார்மீக கடமை உங்கள் அனைவரையும் சாருகின்றது. நீங்கள் டொனால்ட் ட்ரம்புக்கு வாக்களிக்க கூடும், அல்லது ஹிலரிக்கு, எங்கள் டெமோக்ராட்டிக் கேண்டிடேட் கமலா ஹாரிஸுக்கு வாக்களிக்க கூடும். இருப்பினும் அதை வாக்குச்சாவடிக்கு செல்லும் முன் அவர்களது பாலிசி, அவர்களது கொள்கைகள், அது பொருளாதாரம், சமூகம், சமத்துவம் மற்றும் புவியியல் கொள்கைகள், பூலோக அரசியல் ஆகியவற்றை மனதில் கொண்டு, ஆகியவற்றை விளங்கிக் கொண்டு உங்கள் வாக்குகளை அளிக்க வேண்டும் என்பதுதான் இந்த இளையவர்களின் கருத்தாக இருக்கிறது. சரி நேயர்களே, மீண்டும் இன்னும் ஒரு நிகழ்ச்சியில் சந்திப்போம். அதுவரை அன்பு தமிழ் வணக்கங்கள் கூறி விடைபெறுகின்றோம். மீண்டும் விடுகதையின் சார்பில் நன்றி கலந்த வணக்கங்கள் உங்கள் அனைவருக்கும்.